Fellow Ambazonians, friends and sympathizers of the struggle, on January 20, 2023, the Canadian Foreign Ministry officially informed the world that the parties to the conflict in the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia have agreed, in quote, to enter a process to reach a comprehensive, peaceful, and political resolution to the conflict. The parties, they said, have also agreed to form technical committees to begin work on confidence-building measures, end of quote. Canada affirmed that it has accepted the mandate to facilitate the process. The statement went on to express the hope that other groups will join in the process. Following this declaration, a statement was also issued on January the 21st by the Ambazonian groups that took part in the initial talks to lay the groundwork for the official process. In this statement, they said that both parties have signed a joint declaration of commitment, committing to a mediated process from which a comprehensive negotiated settlement shall emanate, and mandated Canada as facilitator of the process. However, the statement expresses, in quote, deep concern over the reference in the Canadian statement, which they said undermines the spirit and letter of the signed agreement between both parties while they met in Canada. Until the Canadian announcement of January the 20th, only those who attended the pre-talks knew what was happening in Canada. The rest of Ambazonia was in complete darkness regarding those who had been selected or those who had gone there and what they were talking about in Canada. The two statements from Canada and from the Ambazonian groups have now shed light on what was happening and why many questions still remain unanswered, and the ever-lingering suspicions over the ability of Cameroon to actually commit remain on the balance. We here at the interim government of Ambazonia are comfortable enough at this moment to inject our presence into the process, albeit very cautiously. We have done so considering that it is only right now that the real formal talks are to begin. We are willing, with caution, to ignore the initial shortcomings that characterize the beginning of the pre-talks. We have learned that both sides agreed to set up technical committees to lay out the modalities and clarify technical matters about the implementation and monitoring of confidence-building measures. This is the problem that we see in this. Forming technical committees before the beginning of the formal negotiations, when the Ambazonian side is not yet completely constituted, sends bad signals to what lies ahead. The firm commitments from the comrades who were there give us hope that there would be no friction between those who work out the agreement for a formal process and those who will be joining henceforth. What matters now is putting all hands on deck to ensure that the Ambazonian position and aspirations are well defined and defended by all of us. The Ambazonian side has a major challenge now. We will not build on the initial mistakes that characterized the beginning of the pre-talks, but strengthen things out and ensure that the Ambazonian side is exactly what Ambazonians want it to be. There should be no question as to who is the other party here, or a third party trying to influence the composition of the Ambazonian side, or any effort to keep its people in the dark about the progression of the negotiation process. The formal talks should mark a fresh beginning, despite anything that might have happened prior to the pre-talks. I would like to commend the Ambazonian groups that worked out the initial agreement for presenting themselves as representatives of the process, simply as one party, ladies and gentlemen, and not as individual groups that initially participated in the pre-talks, cannot be overemphasized here. There are only two parties to these talks. They are La République du Cameroun and the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. The Cameroon side is made up of every shade of opinion than independence, and the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia side, in many groups, is made up of a united team with a united stance for a free and independent Southern Cameroons. People should be free to express themselves and be represented by any of the two parties, that is, La République du Cameroun and the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. Nothing like civil society groups or federalists and so on. They know their sides. All Ambazonian groups will have to, as a matter of urgency, come together, constitute themselves into one party, form their agenda and roadmap, and pick their one spokesperson. Although the Canadian announcement lists certain Ambazonian groups, such as the Ambazonia Governing Council and the Ambazonia Defense Force, the African People's Liberation Movement and the Southern Cameroon's Defense Force, the interim government, and the Ambazonia coalition team. It is noted that these groups may be parties to the pre-talks, or they may have been parties to the pre-talks agreement, but they are not. Again, they are not parties to the conflict. None of these groups has any conflict in their own standing with Cameroon, or in their own name with Cameroon. It is only Ambazonia, or the former United Nations territory of the British Southern Cameroons, that has a conflict with Cameroon, not the interim government, not AGOFC, not Maurice, not the SCNC, but Ambazonia. All the groups would have to represent and speak in the name of the territory, not in their own names, not as the interim government, APLM, SCNC, RUA, you can name the rest. So if the dialogue is to address the conflict, it should specifically cite the parties to the conflict, which are, again, the Republic of Cameroon and the former United Nations Trust Territory of the British Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. There will never be any possibility that each of our groups can sign a separate peace agreement with La République du Cameroon as if they own a territory or without reference to Ambazonia. It is now clear, ladies and gentlemen, therefore, that a formal process of dialogue is to begin, and that Canada will be the facilitator. The most critical conditions for dialogue to hold have been met. The need for dialogue to hold outside of Cameroon is met, and in a neutral country, and secondly, that the dialogue should take place before a third party, that one too is met. Now that everything is in order, there is no longer any reason not to be there. We are therefore going to join our colleagues to ensure justice is done to the people of the Southern Cameroons who have suffered undue injustices for decades. The question of the exactitude of the wording of the Canadian announcement is of secondary importance at this moment. Only the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, agreed upon by the two parties matters now. Whatever La République du Cameroon or Canada says does not prevent Ambazonia from coming up with its own agenda that will need to be discussed and agreed upon before the process begins. We should, at least for now, ignore the semantics and focus on the substance, which will depend on what we do from now, from today. I therefore, on behalf of the interim government, want to emphasize the urgency of Ambazonia to come up with its own team, not groups, and its own agenda before going to Canada. Ambazonia should not be seen in Canada in groups. It should be a team of well-vetted technocrats, experts, not representing the groups, but representing Ambazonia. The groups should form a council and remain in the background, giving counsel to the technocrats, the negotiation team. That's our position. The groups would have to come out only to endorse the final agreement if and when one is reached. In this regard, we will join and facilitate all efforts to rally all leaders so that we work out the specifics of our agenda and our team before the process starts. For as long as this is done, you can trust that the interim government will stay the course and render our best participation, ladies and gentlemen. But if people choose to go there in fractions or factions, in groups, we at this interim government will not hesitate to pull out. And I mean that. Lest we forget, this struggle isn't about groups. Groups have played very important roles. But right now, at this moment, it is about Ambazonia, and it must be about Ambazonia. If every Ambazonian agrees with this, then this is the moment you rise up like one man and exert the necessary pressure for Ambazonia leaders to sit on that process as a team and not as groups. Let's put grandstanding in politics aside. When you get to Biya, you will have enough time to do politics. But for for now. Let's unite and beat the hair out of the enemy and grab back our country. Let me assure our people that stopping the war is not the solution we want. Stopping the war indeed is not in our plan, not until our goals are attained during the process. We cannot talk about a ceasefire. We never opened fire. We did not declare war. It was declared on us. What we want is a peaceful, permanent resolution to the long-standing conflict dating back to 1961 between the former United Nations Trust Territory of the British Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon. The Southern Cameroon has been seeking justice for more than half a century. More than half a century. There can be no peace without justice. And so to have peace, we must do justice. We believe that these talks provide the opportunity we have been looking for to have justice done to the people, the struggling people of the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. Beyond the incomprehensible differences between La République du Cameroun and the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia, the two parties at war, let us remember that we are all Africans. How can the children of Africa be butchering each other? What is the reason behind the carnage in Ambazonia? Let us all look to the happy and prosperous future for these two peoples once they are liberated from the bondage of war and imposition. Ambazonia does not, again listen to the sound of my voice, Ambazonia does not and will never claim an inch of Cameroon territory or to take anything away from her. We seek only what is ours. Let there be justice to our people, and the sounds of the gun will be forgotten in memory. As far as confidence-building measures are concerned, we call on Cameroon to now prove its goodwill and willingness to engage in genuine dialogue by declaring a ceasefire, by releasing all our prisoners, and by stopping the burning of our villages, crop destruction, the harassment of civilians, and stopping the unnecessary provocations that have led to war and continue to feed the war. If Cameroon declares a ceasefire today and releases all our prisoners, political prisoners, every Ambazonian in their gulags, that would be the end of the confrontation, because Ambazonian fighters do not go out to attack Cameroon soldiers unless their counties are attacked and their people tortured. Yes, there is no reason for the fighting to continue if Cameroon takes these needed steps to end it, even though that will not end the conflict. To our long-suffering people, civilians in the territory, we praise you for your endurance and sacrifices. We must right now renew our determination and sacrifices to see a free and independent Ambazonia. Nothing in the world is equal to the freedom God Himself has given us. I call on all Ambazonians today to please, to commit this period and the process to prayers. I urge us all to increase our funding for the liberation effort, because nothing, zero, is yet won. I exhort our fighters, all the Ambazonia restoration forces, to heighten, elevate their vigilance, knowing the country we are dealing with has never kept promises. The Ambazonia fighters should know that the battle is just beginning. No one should go to sleep. Ambazonia will only be liberated on the strength of our unflinching determination to spare no effort until we can breathe the air of freedom in a free and independent Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. Ghost towns will be intensified. We have since banned the celebration of 11 February and others. It stands. There is no better weapon we have at our disposal like firepower. Why we give Cameroon a chance with this Canadian process? We must elevate, we must intensify our fighting ability on the ground. We are not free, ladies and gentlemen, until we are free. I ask all of you Ambazonians and sympathizers to please, I'm begging you, join us. Join this interim government on Friday. Let's put our hands in our pocket. Put funds together to elevate firepower on the ground and stop their fraudulent 11 February celebrations in our territory. Imagine the kind of message we would have sent to Cameroon if we can put enough ammunition in the hands of Ambazonia restoration fighters to intensify ground zero action. Having said that, the interim government commends Cameroon for at least being willing to settle this matter on the table as it ought to have done from the very onset. Slaughtering Ambazonians is not the answer, will never be the answer to Cameroon's decades of occupation and oppression. We urge the international community to midwife this process patiently until it bears fruit. The international community cannot continue to act like harlots in this case. Yesterday it was the Swiss initiative and they all told us they were all in. Now it is Canada and we are also hearing that they will be hopping in to endorse it. When Cameroon pulled out of the Swiss initiative, where was the international community? Not a single statement of condemnation came in from any one of them. We hope that when Cameroon, considering that keeping to promises has never been in our character, pulls out of Canada, that the international community will once and for all exercise the powers it has with drastic sanctions that compel Cameroon to respect engagements, international engagements. We thank the Canadian government and all international actors who have been supporting us, supporting the Ambazonian people for their untiring efforts to free our homeland. We know what we are fighting for, ladies and gentlemen. We know what our fighters have been killed for. We know what our towns and villages have been burned for. We know what our people have been incarcerated for all these years. We know why thousands of our people are in refugee centers across West Africa and the rest of the world. A free and independent Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. Let the process begin. Long live the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Short live the war. The unyielding spirit of Ambazonia, a nation that refuses to bow. The conflict between Ambazonia and the Republic of Cameroon, or La République du Cameroun, has entered its 8th year, marking a protracted struggle between two opposing visions. one of a centralized francophone-dominated La République du Cameroun, and the other of a self-determined Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. Despite the odds stacked against them, the might of a heavily armed national military, international ambivalence, and economic pressures of a war-torn society, Ambazonia stands undefeated. Recent events underscore this reality, particularly the failed school resumption on September 9, 2024. While La République authorities planned for a return to school, it was Ambazonia's voice, Ambazonia's will and determination that ultimately prevailed. This incident, like many others, reveals that La République du Cameroon's hold on Ambazonian territory is tenuous at best, and despite their relentless efforts, the Ambazonian people continue to dictate their own fate. It is becoming even clearer Ambazonia is not a land that can be subdued. September 9, 2024 was supposed to mark the return of students across La République du Cameroun to their classrooms. The government of La République du Cameroun had set this date in stone, but in Ambazonia, a different reality unfolded. Rather than children flocking to schools, classrooms remained empty, and the street stayed silent, an eerie testament to the power of the Ambazonian resistance. In many areas, Ambazonian fighters ensured that La République du Cameroun schools stayed shut, defying the decrees of their government. The stark contrast between the government's expectations and the reality on the ground was more than a logistical failure. It was a symbolic defeat. Take the case of Ndop, where the district officer was seen walking through overgrown schoolyards, begging, literally begging for teachers to return. Even the principal of the school was nowhere to be found. He was absent. This desperate plea for normalcy was met with a resounding silence as educators and students alike heeded the call of the Ambazonian leadership rather than the government of La République du Cameroun in Yaoundé. In Menchum, another district officer stationed in the town of Isimbi was left to deal with a different yet equally humiliating blow. When he discovered a community school set up by the locals, he ordered its closure, frustrated that the only schools allowed to operate were under the directives of the Ambazonian authorities. His orders, however, felt like a mere echo in the wind, ineffective and out of place in a territory that no longer sees itself as part of Cameroon. Even in Boya, a key city in the conflict and the former seat of Ambazonian activism and power, Ayaba-The, the governor, expressed his frustration as Ambazonian fighters paralyzed every form of activity, including schools. In his desperation, Ayaba turned to local chiefs and elite, urging them to intervene and stop the fighters. Yet, despite his authority, these local leaders found themselves powerless against a movement that has deep roots in the community and speaks to the hearts of the people. The resounding failure to reopen schools as planned on September 9 by La République du Cameroun is not just a logistical defeat for them, It is a clear indication that the government is losing the battle for the hearts and minds of Ambazonia's people. The failure of school resumption coincides with the successful 3-week lockdown imposed by the Ambazonian leadership. This lockdown, executed with precision and discipline, is yet another reminder to the world that Cameroon has lost its authority in the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. No matter how many soldiers Yaoundé deploys, no matter how many decrees are issued from the presidential palace in a 2-day, the reality on the ground is different. It is Ambazonia's will that dictates the pace of life, not La République du Cameroon's. In previous years, there were moments where La République du Cameroon seemed to believe it could reassert its control over Ambazonia. There were sporadic successes in reopening schools or holding government functions in certain towns and most of the remote areas. Yet, each time La République du Cameroon government claimed victory, Ambazonia countered with a powerful show of resistance. The lockdown, which affected daily life, trade, and movement, was a testament to this unyielding control. It wasn't just a declaration of defiance. It was proof that Ambazonia is functioning as a sovereign entity, one capable of exercising jurisdiction over its people. The Ambazonian conflict has drained La République du Cameroon economically and socially, slowly but surely squeezing the life out of the state apparatus. The war, now longer than the Nigerian-Biafran conflict, and both were wars, has left the government of La République du Cameroon with a staggering debt crisis, deteriorating infrastructure, and an overextended military that struggles to maintain basic control. La République du Cameroon's national debt has skyrocketed as it tries to sustain military operations in Ambazonia. Reports of the Cameroonian government struggling to pay civil servants and meet obligations to its own people are becoming increasingly common. Civil servants, already stretched thin, are owed months of unpaid salaries, leading to discontent and whispers of internal unrest. Soldiers sent to fight in Ambazonia are underpaid and under-equipped, which not only diminishes their morale, but also exposes the vulnerabilities of La République du Cameroon's military as an overburdened, exhausted force. The decaying infrastructure in La République du Cameroon is further evidence of the government's inability to manage both the war and the needs of its people. Roads, hospitals, schools, and other essential services are falling apart, with most resources being funneled into the war effort. The war has left its footprint on every corner of Cameroonian society, and the economic toll is staggering. The situation has become so dire that Cameroon is now forced to rely heavily on international aid and loans to stay afloat, further plunging the country into a financial abyss from which it might never recover. If the government of La République du Cameroon still believes it can win this conflict militarily, it needs to start rethinking its strategy. 8 years have passed by, And despite the use of force, widespread human rights abuses, and a campaign of intimidation, La République du Cameroon has been unable to subdue Ambazonia. The war has lasted far longer than even the Biafran conflict, which lasted for only 3 years. And it has exceeded both the First and the Second World Wars, the first one lasting 4 years, the second one 6 years. This longevity is not just a testament to the complexity of the conflict, but to the resilience, the resilience of the Ambazonian people. They have endured displacement, the burning of their villages, the killing of their loved ones, and yet they continue to stand. No amount of military intervention has been able to break Ambazonians' will. The government of La République du Cameroon may have the weapons, but Ambazonia has something far more powerful, an idea, or a cause rooted in the deep desire for freedom and independence. The determination of the Ambazonian fighters, ladies and gentlemen, and their leadership, despite their limited resources, shows that this conflict cannot be won by force. Ambazonia has become an example of an asymmetrical war, where the weaker party leverages its local knowledge, popular support, and moral high ground to challenge a far larger and better equipped adversary, that is, La République du Cameroon. Cameroon's reliance on brute force has done little more than galvanize Ambazonians' resistance. The more Cameroon attempts to suppress Ambazonia, the stronger and more resolute the Ambazonian movement becomes, especially the more resolute Ambazonia restoration fighters. The leadership in Yaoundé faces a stark choice: continue a costly war with no end in sight, or begin to accept the reality of Ambazonian self-determination. As the conflict drags on, it's not just Ambazonia that suffers. The entire country of La République du Cameroon is being pulled down with it. Politically, Cameroon's leadership is beginning to fracture under the strain. There are rumblings within the government, within their military, and within their civil service about the feasibility of continuing this fight. President Paul Biya's regime has long relied on a policy of centralization and suppression. But as the years go by, this strategy is proving unsustainable. International pressure is mounting, and the global community is growing increasingly critical of Cameroon's handling of the situation and its refusal to dialogue. Continued reports of human rights abuses, war crimes, and atrocities are eroding La République du Cameroon's standing on the world stage. Moreover, the government's inability to address the root causes of the conflict, the systemic assimilation, marginalization, and oppression of the Ambazonian population, only ensures that the war will continue. As long as Cameroon refuses to recognize the legitimate grievances of the Ambazonian people, there can be no peace, neither for them or for us. The people of Ambazonia are not asking for superficial reforms or half measures. They are demanding complete independence, and they have proven that they will accept nothing less. Again, nothing less. The situation in Ambazonia remains a powerful reminder to the leaders in La République du Cameroon of the limits of force and the strength of a people united by a common cause. La République du Cameroon has thrown everything it can at Ambazonia. Its military, its bureaucracy, its legal system, its money, and yet Ambazonia remains unbroken. The failed school resumption, the successful lockdown, and the continued inability of Cameroon to exert meaningful control over Ambazonia all point to one undeniable fact, and it is that Ambazonia cannot be defeated. Cannot be defeated. The government of La République du Cameroon finds itself trapped in a war it cannot win. Every day that the conflict continues, Cameroon's economy weakens, its infrastructure crumbles, and its authority erodes. The longer it takes for La République du Cameroon to realize that Ambazonia is a nation determined to forge its own destiny, the deeper the wounds will grow on both sides. The failed attempts, ladies and gentlemen, by the La République du Cameroon government to assert control over Ambazonia's schools, coupled with the lockdown that was so effectively enforced by Ambazonia restoration fighters, should serve as clear indicators that the struggle for Ambazonian independence is not merely a political struggle, it is a deeply rooted generational fight for identity and sovereignty. The leadership in Yaoundé may continue to deny Ambazonia's right to self-determination, but every day they delay a meaningful resolution, they risk further unraveling the fabric of their own country. Again, that was my talking point there, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it is illuminating and makes a lot of sense to you. And the colonial administrators, Mbella Moki and the rest, they stand alongside Moja, or whatever they call him. Now, we realize that another tactic they have devised now is to say, Northerners are the problem. Northerners are the comrades. I am 54 years old. Since I was a teenager, I started hearing about Northwest against Southwest, Southwest against Northwest. At a point in time, you will see the elite of the Northwest will gang together the Nkwines, the Achidi Achus, the what is that guy, former prime minister? They all gang up and make some resolutions and drop them out there, and before you know, the colonial elite in Yaoundé will pick it over and try to use it to divide Amba, to divide the southern zone and the northern zone. Then once in a while too, they pick buffoons like Mbella Moki and Moja, the Portasons, and so on. They use them to come together and make incendiary statements, xenophobic statements like the ones we hear from Mbella Moki and Moja. So they always try to pit Northerners against Southerners, Southerners against Northerners. This has been from time immemorial. It is not something we are hearing today. And that is why we don't need to care about that, because it's an old tactic we have known for years. We've known them for years. They come, they die and go, and the new generation come, and the same tactic continues. When they cannot beat us at a battlefield, they devise psychological warfare. And the psychological warfare is, all your problems in the Southwest are caused by Northerners. All your problems in the northern zone are caused by Southerners who own everything, who claim they own everything. You in the northern zone, you don't own anything. But you in the southern zone, if you are not careful, the northern zone with their population, they dominate you. Even if you get in this country called Ambazonia, remember, don't forget, the population of the northerners will overweigh you in the southern zone. That is the message you hear from La République du Cameroon. We should open our eyes and know, ladies and gentlemen, it is not starting today. They use it to divide the Fonchas, the Munas, the Hindeles, the Kangsens, and so on and so forth from time immemorial. This is not something we pay attention to it. Ignore it. They just want to use it to knock our heads. Knock our heads. But unfortunately, there are people among us who will hear these things and say, I think this thing makes a little sense. Makes sense. I think it makes sense. There are people among us who will say so. But we know them. Please, let us be focused. Let us be focused. Razor focus. Let nothing distract us. Let them devise any method of running away with victory. Let us detect it as a rider. Let's detect it as a rider. So let us forget about the Mbella Mokis and their divide and conquer tactic out there. And here you go. In the midst of the ongoing conflict in Ambazonia, the statement issued by Maurice Kamto, La République du Cameroon's opposition leader, to what he describes as his sisters and brothers in the Northwest and Southwest on April 18 has sparked a flurry of skepticism and doubt among the Ambazonian population. If anything at all, Ambazonians find Kamto's words to be lacking in sincerity and genuine commitment to an enduring solution to the conflict. As the leader of the opposition in La République du Cameroon, Maurice Kamto's words carry weight and influence. Hope he knows this. However, his message to the people of Ambazonia, which he prefers to recall or refer to as, as designated as Northwest and Southwest, was met with suspicion and disbelief. Kamto's assertion of the indivisibility of Cameroon and his emphasis on resolving the conflict through dialogue and a federal state does not sit well with Ambazonians. They see his words as an attempt to pacify and blindfold them into complacency rather than addressing the root causes of the conflict. Kamto's reference to reunification, a terminology that has been used by La République du Cameroon's politicians to imply that the Southern Cameroons have no distinct voice of their own, further fuels the skepticism by invoking a non-existent reunification. Kamto seemed to disregard the unique history and aspirations of the Southern Cameroons, suggesting that they were always part of Cameroon. The Southern Cameroon was always part of Cameroon. You want us to believe, which we Ambazonians vehemently reject. The key questions raised by Ambazonians in response to Kamto's statement highlight their concerns, our concerns about his true intentions and commitment to a genuine solution to the conflict. We question whether Kamto truly believes in the right of the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, to self-determination, whether he would support a referendum for the people of the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, to express their wishes freely, and whether he acknowledges their right to withdraw from the Union, if there was one, as they say, with la République du Cameroon. Ambazonians want any dialogue to involve only two parties, la République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroons, and to take place in a neutral country to ensure fairness and impartiality. A union can only be based on the freely expressed wishes of both parties, rather than a forced or imposed unity that disregards the aspirations of the Southern Cameroons. Our skepticism towards Maurice Kamto's intentions, ladies and gentlemen, and commitment to a just solution to the conflict stems from a long history of broken promises and unfulfilled commitments by political leaders in the République du Cameroon. Ambazonians have witnessed a lack of genuine progress towards resolving the conflict and addressing their grievances, leading them to questioning the motives of any political figure who claims to stand for justice and for peace. In the eyes of Ambazonians, actions speak louder than words. We demand concrete actions and genuine efforts towards recognizing our rights and addressing the root causes of the conflict, rather than empty promises and vague assurances. Until Maurice Kamto and other political leaders demonstrate a true commitment to the aspirations of the Ambazonian people, their words would continue to fall on deaf ears and be met with skepticism and doubt. The skepticism and doubt surrounding Maurice Kamto's intentions in addressing the Northwest and Southwest conflict, as he puts it, deepen as more questions arise regarding his true commitment to the cause of the Southern Cameroons. The call for a United Nations supervised referendum exclusively for the people of the Southern Cameroons to express their wishes freely has been a crucial demand put forth by Ambazonians. They believe that only through such a democratic process can their voices be heard and their aspirations for autonomy and independence be respected. Kamto's reluctance to openly support such a referendum raises suspicions among Ambazonians, who view his stance as evasive and insincere. The demand for dialogue to take place between two equal parties, that is, the République du Cameroon and the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia, in a neutral country underscores the need for fairness, the need for transparency and impartiality in any peace negotiations. Ambazonians insist on a level playing field where their concerns and grievances would be given due consideration rather than being overshadowed or marginalized by the dominant narrative of the Cameroonian state. Ultimately, the litmus test for any francophone claiming to stand for justice and peace in the Ambazonian conflict lay in their responses to these fundamental questions. Ambazonians see these questions as essential probes into the sincerity, the integrity, and the commitment of any leader purporting to look for lasting solutions. The answers provided by political figures like Maurice Kamto would reveal their true colors and true intentions, shedding light on whether or not
they truly respect the rights and aspirations of the people of the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. The history of the Ambazonian conflict, ladies and gentlemen, is rife with broken promises, failed initiatives, and escalating violence every day. Ambazonians have endured years of marginalization, of oppression, and human rights abuses, fueling their determination to seek recognition, to seek justice and self-determination. Against this backdrop, the words and actions of political leaders like Maurice Kamto carry a heavy burden of responsibility and accountability. In the eyes of Ambazonians, the only path to peace and justice lay in a genuine commitment to addressing the root causes of the conflict, recognizing the rights and aspirations of the Southern Cameroons, and engaging in a transparent and inclusive dialogue process. Unto political leaders, the lives of Maurice Kamto demonstrate a clear and unwavering dedication to these principles. Their words will continue. Again, their words will continue to ring hollow and fail to resonate with the aspirations and hopes of the people of the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia. And that is my monologue and response to this letter coming from Maurice Kamto. I am supposed to be joined by Comrade Dennis Atem, joining me from somewhere in Africa, and not Dennis Atem, not Derek Atem. And of course, I have also Derek, who is joining me from.
In a rare display of candor, Mbella Moki, a prominent figure within the Cameroonian political system, delivered a fiery tirade against cabinet members, almost breaking into tears, as he passionately decreed the systemic neglect that plagues the country. His impassioned speech, which enumerated a litany of failed promises, including the long overdue bitumen plant, the Victoria Seaport, the Tico Airport, and other essential infrastructure, was a moment of truth that many did not see coming from someone of his political leaning. For once, a voice within the corridors of power in Yaoundé echoed the frustrations of millions. Moki's critique was poignant, timely, and in its own way, courageous. However, this moment of boldness does not absolve Mbella Moki or others like him from the broader indictment of complicity in the oppression of Ambazonia, where he hails from. His lamentations, though notable, are not enough to erase decades of his active participation in a system designed to exploit, suppress, and underdevelop the Southern Cameroons. If anything, they highlight the profound contradictions of those who have thrived within this system, while occasionally shedding crocodile tears over its dysfunction. For Ambazonians, Mbella Moki's grievances are far from new. They are echoes of the same unfulfilled promises that have defined the relationship between the Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon for over 6 decades. 6 decades, ladies and gentlemen. These promises to build critical infrastructure, to develop the region, and to provide basic amenities have been nothing more than a cynical ploy to pacify a population while entrenching a system of exploitation. Mbella Moki's lamentations about the Victoria Seaport and the Tico Airport, for instance, mirror those of venerable Southern Cameroon leaders like Dr. E.M.L. Indele, Ayaba-The Mokong, John Gu Fancha, Molali Tumbe, you can name the rest. Their voices like his decreed the same neglect, the same broken promises, and the same betrayal. Yet, decades later, the situation remains unchanged, the same. The question that arises, therefore, is why individuals like Mbella Moki believe their impassioned critics will make any difference. Why do they think that lamenting within the same system that perpetuates this oppression will yield results? History has shown us that it will not. Joseph Weber, another bold voice who dared to speak truth to power within the Cameroonian parliament, serves as a cautionary tale. His impassioned speeches earned him exile and marginalization, not change. If Weber, who spoke with unmatched conviction, could not move the needle, what makes Mbella Moki think his tears will? The answer lies not in their words, but in their actions or lack thereof. The reality is that individuals like Mbella Moki are products and beneficiaries of the very system they criticize. Their loyalty to Yaoundé, despite its glaring failures, stems from a combination of greed, and fear. They are content with the crumbs that fall from the table of power, unwilling to risk their positions or privileges for the greater good of their own people. This complicity is what keeps Ambazonia in bondage. By participating in the charade of governance under La République du Cameroon, they learn legitimacy to a system that has no intention of changing. If Mbella Moki and others truly care about the plight of their people, they would go beyond lamentations. They would stage a mass walkout, tender their resignations, and return to their roots to join the struggle for an independent Ambazonia. Such an act of defiance would send a powerful message to both the regime in Yaoundé and the international community that the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia will no longer tolerate its subjugation. Instead, they cling to the illusion that change can come from within, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Consider the promises that Mbella Moki highlighted in his tirade. The bitumen roads, the Victoria Seaport, the Chico Airport, and add the Bamanda Ring Road to it. These are not new aspirations. They are relics of a colonial-era strategy to placate the Southern Cameroons while stripping it of its resources. The neglect of these projects is not accidental. It is a deliberate policy of underdevelopment designed to weaken the region and keep it dependent. Buya remains disconnected from its 6th division, they call it, and Bamenda too suffers the same fate. This is not incompetence. It is an annexationist policy in action. As a teenager, I remember hearing the same laments or lamentations from the great Southern Cameroon's nationalists. E.M.A. Indele's cries over the Victoria Seaport were as heartfelt as they were futile. Ayaba-The Mokong's fiery denunciations, Albert Mola Njol Lutumbe's legal arguments, and so on and so forth. All their political activism underscored the same point. The Southern Cameroon was being systematically stripped of its dignity and future. Yet, despite their efforts, the system remained impervious to change. What makes Mbella Moki think his voice will succeed where theirs did not succeed? The only antidote to this circle of neglect and lamentation is independence. Independence. An independent Ambazonia would have the power and agency to chart its own course, to build its own roads, build its own ports and airports, and to develop its own economy. It would no longer have to beg for crumbs from Yaoundé's table. But for this vision to become a reality, Ambazonians must reject the false promises of integration and stand firm in their demand for self-determination. Mbella Moki's tirade and lamentation, while commendable, is ultimately hollow, empty, without action. It is not enough to criticize the system. One must also reject it. If Moki were truly committed to the well-being of his own people, he would abandon his position within La République du Cameroun political machinery and join the struggle for a free and independent Southern Cameroon. Until he does, his words will remain just that, empty words. For those of us who have witnessed decades of unfulfilled promises, the time for lamentation has long passed. 8 years ago, we must applaud when someone like Mbella Moki speaks out. But we must also hold them accountable for their role in perpetuating this status quo. Words alone will not bring change. Only action will. And the most powerful action that Mbella Moki and his peers can take is to walk away from a system that has brought nothing, zero, but suffering to the Southern Cameroons. In the end, the fight for Ambazonia's independence is not just about breaking free from La République du Cameroun. It is also about breaking free from the mindset that change can come from within. It will not. It cannot. The system is designed to sustain itself at the expense of the Southern Cameroons. Those who believe otherwise are either deluded or complicit. Mbella Moki's tears may have been genuine, but they are not enough. The only path to justice, dignity, and development for Ambazonia lies in independence. Anything less is a betrayer of our history and our future. Let me tell you something. I have heard some people said to me in the past, Secretary Chris, I think if they give us federation, let's take it. That's what some people told me. They said, Secretary Chris, I think, should they give us federation? Or we should go there, negotiate for federation, so that if they give us federation, if they agree for federation, we can then take it, and then in another 5 years, we'll build up our army and cut off from them. Ladies and gentlemen, La République du Cameroun will never sign any federation that gives the northern zone and the southern zone full autonomy over its territory and resources, because they are scared of you. They know that they give you that federation. The governor up in the northern zone will be building an army. The governor up in the southern zone will be building an army. In fact, the governors will not even be, ladies and gentlemen, they may not even be Ambazonians. If they give us federation, the governors will not even be Ambazonians. They will be Francophones. You know, the policy of integration. You remember bilingualism? They will never give us indigenous, nationalist Ambazonians to be governors in the northern, governor in the northern zone, governor in the southern zone, because they will be scared of them, that they will cut the country and run away from. So some people were saying to me, Secretary Chris, I think if they agree on federation, we should take it, and then with time, we'll cut off. It will never happen, because They will never allow an Ambazonian to be governors in both zones. They would never allow it to be. It will never happen. That is why we must fight and die for nothing but a free and independent Southern Cameroons. Now or never. Now or never, ladies and gentlemen. Don't fall for that shit they call federation. Federation, our people have not been dying for all these years, 5 years and counting, just for federation. If La République so much love federation, they should have implemented it for the time our forefathers began to ask for it. So many people did not have to die before La République considers federation. We are in for this fight. We are paying the price of this war, not to go back and live together with La République du Cameroun in the so-called federation. We are in this war, losing our families, losing our heritage, losing everything that we've planted or sown over the years for nothing but a free and independent Ambazonia. Ladies and gentlemen, any other route leads you back into the hands of La République du Cameroun. That's what we're fighting for. And so that is it. That's what is happening in La République du Cameroun. The tragic abduction and apparent death of Roland Ewane, local government administrator of Ayaba-The in Indian County, raises profound questions about the nature of governance, justice, and equity within La République du Cameroun. While the kidnapping itself is a grievous act that underscores the volatility in the region, the Cameroonian government's response, or lack thereof, reveals deeper systemic issues that continue to plague the relationship between the French-speaking majority and the annexed and marginalized Southern Cameroonian minority. The silence surrounding Ewane's fate is a glaring reminder of why Ambazonia has resisted integration into La République du Cameroun for decades. The anguish of Ewane's wife, desperately seeking answers about her husband's fate, paints a stark picture of the Cameroonian state's apathy. Despite social media circulating images that reportedly depict Ewane as lifeless, officials from Governor Bernard Okalia to the Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngute have offered little more than platitudes. Ewane's wife has been told repeatedly to pray harder, an insulting passive response from those entrusted with the responsibility to act. The family's frustration is mirrored by growing public discontent, as political parties like Maurice Kamto's Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM, call out the government for its dereliction of duty. Kamto's press release castigates the administration for its silence and highlights the bravery of civil servants like Ewane, who work under perilous conditions. Yet, even Kamto stops short of addressing the elephant in the room. Ewane's plight has been ignored because he is Ambazonian. The stark disparity in governmental responses between Francophone and Southern Cameroonian victims is undeniable. Ewane's case is not an isolated incident, but part of a long history of systemic neglect. When prominent Francophone figures have been abducted or attacked, the government of La République du Cameroun has mobilized significant resources, sometimes even negotiating with groups it popularly deems terrorists. For instance, when Boko Haram abducted relatives of a Cameroonian minister, reports indicate that La République du Cameroon paid a ransom to secure their release. In stark contrast, the Ambazonian identity of Ewane has relegated his case to the margins, with officials invoking their refusal to negotiate with terrorists as an excuse for inaction. If Bernard Okalia-Bila himself had been the one abducted, the response would have been vastly different. The military might of the state would have descended on Ayaba-The, with homes touched and entire communities displaced in retaliation. But for Ewane, a Southern Cameroonian, an Ambazonian, the government's silence speaks volumes about the systemic iniquities that have fueled the Ambazonian struggle for 8 years and counting. The neglect shown in Ewane's case is emblematic of why Southern Cameroonians have long resisted integration into La République du Cameroon. The ongoing war in Ambazonia is not merely about independence. It is about survival and the rejection of a system that devalues Southern Cameroonian lives. The marginalization of Ambazonians in governance, in resource allocation, and justice has created a deep chasm of mistrust. Ewane's abduction, ostensibly due to tax enforcement against Nigerian fishing communities in Ayaba-The, illustrates how Southern Cameroonians are often placed in harm's way to serve the state's interests. Taxation policies imposed without consultation or sensitivity to local realities exacerbate tensions in regions already grappling with conflict and economic hardship. The state's failure to protect its own representative from the backlash of these policies further. It is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, that we continually reassess the trajectory of our struggle, ensuring we remain steadfast in our pursuit of total independence and sovereignty. The ongoing liberation war is not a call for compromise or assimilation, but a clarion demand for the restoration of our dignity, our freedom and nationhood. Against this backdrop, the emergence of the APJ, Alliance for Peace and Justice, and their collaboration with the International Community's Organization, ICO, raises significant concerns that merit thorough examination. The APJ, in conjunction with the ICO, presents itself as a mediator of peace and justice. However, a close analysis of their peace plan reveals a glaring omission: the independence of Ambazonia. Instead, the APJ advocates for autonomy within the framework of a united Cameroon. This is not the vision for which thousands of Ambazonians have laid down their lives. Their approach seems designed to recycle the idea of the special status offered during Cameroon's so-called Grand National Dialogue. This so-called status was a deceptive ploy to appease international scrutiny while maintaining the subjugation of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Similarly, the APJ's plan centers on a ceasefire and dialogue with only face value ambiguous mention of the root causes of the conflict. Autonomy, as proposed by the APJ, is a baited trap, in my opinion. Proponents argue that autonomy, followed by a referendum, could eventually allow Ambazonians to decide their future. However, history provides ample evidence that such processes are fraught with manipulation and delays. By the time a referendum question surfaces, If it ever does, La Republic would have already dismantled the very foundation of Ambazonia's resistance. A ceasefire under such terms is not a step forward towards freedom. It is a prelude to disarmament and demobilization. Without the ability to defend ourselves, Ambazonia will be left vulnerable to further exploitation and oppression. It is akin to surrendering the sword while trusting the oppressor to honor promises of peace. The ICO and its local collaborators, including Capo Daniel and Dr. J.J. Asongu, with others, have conspicuously avoided the term Ambazonia. Their rhetoric focuses on Southern Cameroons or Anglophone regions, subtly undermining the identity of our struggle. This linguistic choice is not accidental. It aligns with their vision of keeping Ambazonia shackled within the framework of La République du Cameroun. By excluding the independence option from their peace plan, the ICO and the APJ review their bias. Their mission is not to secure justice for Ambazonia, but to perpetuate the status quo under the guise of peace. It is crucial to revisit the goals of our liberation war. Ambazonians have never fought for half measures or ambiguous autonomy. Our struggle is rooted in the historical betrayal of 1961, when the United Nations and the British government facilitated our forced union with French Cameroon or La République du Cameroun, ignoring our right to self-determination. Since then, our people have endured assimilation, marginalization, cultural erasure, and economic exploitation. The blood of our martyrs demands nothing less than full independence. Any solution that falls short of this is a betrayal of their sacrifice. History is replete, ladies and gentlemen, with examples of liberation movements undermined by half measures. The ICO and the APJ's plan mirrors similar strategies used in other contexts to pacify resistance without addressing the core grievances of oppressed peoples. For instance, South Sudan. Decades of autonomy within Sudan failed to prevent continued exploitation and marginalization until full independence was finally achieved in 2011. How about Western Sahara? Promises of autonomy under Moroccan rule have resulted in prolonged conflict and stalled referendums, leaving the Sahrawi people in a state of limbo. The lesson is clear. Autonomy within a hostile framework is not a stepping stone to freedom. It is a trap designed to dissipate resistance and legitimize oppression. Ambazonians must discern between genuine leadership and opportunistic collaboration. Leaders who align with the APJ's peace plan are complicit in the dilution of our cause. Their actions betray the sacrifices made by Ambazonians on the battlefield, in detention centers, and in exile. True leadership does not waver in the face of international pressure or the allure of compromise. It stands firm in its commitment to the people's aspirations. Our path to independence requires unwavering resolve and clarity of purpose. Here are key steps Ambazonians must take to safeguard their struggle. Number one, rejecting compromises. Any plan that does not explicitly recognize Ambazonia's right to sovereignty is unacceptable. Number two, we strengthen unity. The divide and conquer tactics employed by La République du Cameroun and its collaborators must not weaken our collective resolve. Ambazonian factions must prioritize unity over personal political differences. And lastly, self-defense. A strong self-defense is critical to securing our negotiating position. Disarmament under the guise of a ceasefire will only embolden La République du Cameroon to continue its atrocities. Let us not be deceived by the serene call for peace without justice. The APJ plan is sophisticated. It's a sophisticated attempt to derail, I believe, in my opinion, our independence movement. Their narrative may sound appealing to those weary of war, but it offers no real solution to our plight. Instead, it seeks to entrench the very structures of oppression we are fighting to dismantle. Our liberation war is not a battle for autonomy or reform. It is a fight for freedom and sovereignty. Let us honor the sacrifices of our heroes by staying true to the cause. No half measures, no compromises, independence or nothing. Fellow Ambazonians, friends and sympathizers of the struggle, on January 20th, 2023, the Canadian Foreign Ministry officially informed of this. Permit me to state that the arrest of Cho Ayaba by Norway, coupled with charges of international crimes, reveals an alarming level of hypocrisy and selective justice that should deeply disturb anyone committed to the principles of fairness and equality. This move does not stand alone as a procedural action of international law enforcement, but rather reaches a double standard that blatantly ignores the atrocities committed by the Cameroonian regime against the people of Ambazonia. How can Norway justify singling out Ayaba when Cameroon government officials drenched in the blood of innocents, room-free, untouched by the same mechanisms of justice? This is a travesty of the highest order. Cameroonian officials have committed crimes so heinous, so glaring, that any serious commitment to international justice would necessitate their immediate indictment, their immediate arrest. The arbitrary arrest of innocent civilians in Ambazonia, the burning and destruction of over 400 towns and villages, the rampant use of torture, and the systematic campaign of extrajudicial killings have all been carried out with brutal impunity by the regime in Yaoundé, by their officials. Soldiers of the Cameroonian military have openly admitted to burying civilians in Ambazonia in mass graves, executing innocent people without trial, and engaging in forced disappearances as part of a reign of terror aimed at quashing Ambazonian resistance. This is no speculation or exaggeration. We all know it. Human rights reports are there. These are documented crimes witnessed by the international community. And yet, Norway has chosen to turn a blind eye to these atrocities while targeting an individual who has merely dared to stand against such overwhelming brutality by La République du Cameroon officials. If Norway truly sought to uphold international law and protect human rights, its response would not be limited. Again, its response should not be limited to the arrest of Cho Ayaba, but also extended to the immediate apprehension of Cameroonian officials responsible for these war crimes in Ambazonia. How can any rational observer fail to see the glaring injustice in this situation? Is Norway so politically compromised, so concerned with maintaining diplomatic ties with La République du Cameroon, that it has chosen to overlook the mass killings, the burnings of villages, and the systematic oppression faced by the people of Ambazonia? Have they? To claim to be neutral or law-abiding while allowing such crimes to go unanswered, unpunished, is to be complicit in the very violence it claims to oppose. The message Norway has sent is clear. Fight your freedom and you will be prosecuted. Oppress, murder, and destroy, and you will face no consequences. Where is the justice in this? Where is the even-handedness? Arresting Cho Ayaba while allowing those Cameroonian officials who have orchestrated these atrocities to walk free is not just unfair. It is a moral disgrace on the part of Norway. It exposes the deeply entrenched biases within the international community that allow powerful regimes to crush smaller, oppressed peoples without fear of reprisal. If justice were truly blind, if the international legal system were truly impartial, then, ladies and gentlemen, Cameroon's leaders will be facing the same handcuffs now slapped on Ayaba. They would be charged with crimes against humanity, with genocide, with every horror that they have unleashed upon Ambazonian civilians. Yet here we are, watching as Norway selectively enforces the law. Norway's actions signal to the world that the suffering of Ambazonians is not worth their attention. That's what it is. That their cries for justice will continue to be ignored, and that the lives destroyed by the Cameroonian regime led by Paul Biya are expendable. This is a shameful chapter in the history of international law, one that casts a long shadow over the credibility of those institutions that claim to champion human rights. Until the world holds the real perpetrators of these atrocities, of these war crimes in Cameroon, accountable, until Norway, the Kingdom of Norway, and others like it, cease their cowardly appeasement of oppressive regimes, there will be no justice, only the continuation of a cruel and selective system where the oppressed are criminalized and the oppressors walk free. This is not just unfair, it is a grotesque perversion of justice, and the international community must reckon with this failure. If Norway, ladies and gentlemen, if Norway wishes to claim any moral high ground, it must take a hard look at the crimes of Cameroon and arrest those responsible. Anything less is a betrayal of justice itself. Thank you for joining the broadcast. Again, I will be coming to you tonight with the subject of La République du Cameroon's presidential elections that are being encroached into the territory of Ambazonia. We're also gathering that Elecam Cameroon, that is, they call it Elections Cameroon, officials are being slaughtered in the north of that country, talking about the long-predicted civil war that is going to ensue in Cameroon over their transition. We're going to look into that and, of course, many other things. But before we get there, again, I'd like to appeal to you. Go ahead, hit your share button. Hit your share button and let us populate the platform. Of course, I will also be talking about the action, the decision that we have taken here at this interim government from at the executive level to deal with the ADF. The ADF on the ground. And ladies and gentlemen, since the beginning of this struggle, the ADF has been the number one trouble that we have had on the ground. And we have decided here, if there is no change, for the better for the ADF, we will now have to deal with them squarely as an anti-revolutionary force on the ground. We will treat them as we treat La République du Cameroon's army. I will come.
Fellow Ambazonians, friends and sympathizers of the struggle, on January 20th, 2023, the Canadian Foreign Ministry officially informed the world that the parties to the conflict in the Southern Cameroon-Ambazonia have agreed, in quote, to enter a process to reach a comprehensive, peaceful, and political resolution to the conflict. The parties, they said, have also agreed to form technical committees to begin work on confidence-building measures, end of quote. Canada affirmed that it has accepted the mandate to facilitate the process. The statement went on to express the hope that other groups will join in the process. Following this declaration, a statement was also issued on January the 21st by the Ambazonian groups that took part in the initial talks to lay the groundwork for the official process. In this statement, they said that both parties have signed a joint declaration of commitment